Alright guys, this is everything that we're going to need to set up a slip bobber setup. And this is the smaller version of it that I basically just cut off of my other pole and I can use for demonstration. But you've got the bobber stop, you've got a bead, you've got the cork. Now the only reason that I have the bead in between the bobber stop and the cork is because this particular cork, the tip of the top of the cork, the diameter is much larger than the bobber stop itself. So I have to have a bead there separating it so it wouldn't just go straight over the bobber stop. I prefer to buy corks that have a smaller diameter, and I'm going to be doing the demonstration of setting it up on a fishing pole, start to finish, bobber stop, cork, split shot, all the way down to the jig. But I'm going to be doing the demonstration with this cork here, but you can see the eye, or the tip of the diameter of this cork, has a much smaller opening, and that will just go, I wouldn't have to have a bead, I could just go straight up to the bobber stop. And this is a much older one, but I try to find them with smaller, but unfortunately this one did not have it. But this may be all you're having to work with, so you may have to use a bead. Now, beyond the bead, you have your split shot. Keep getting hooked on a hook here. But you've got your split shot. Now, this is personal preference. You do not have to use a split shot. You could just have the jig head as your weight. That's totally personal preference, and that is up to you. But of course, going down to this is the clip that I like to use, and this is the jig head. And so essentially, this is a slip cork in a nutshell. It just slides freely through the line until it hits the bobber stop. And that allows you to move your depth up and down as you please. Now, going through everything that we need. Of course, we're going to need some scissors to trim our line. Going from the top, these are the rubber bobber stops that I mentioned. When you buy these, they come in either very large packs, or they come in just the individual, the holder with maybe 5 or 6 bobber stops on little pieces of wire. And I've got them kind of spread out for you there so you can see it. But what's going to happen is we're going to pull one of these off here and put our fishing line through this loop, and then pull the rubber bobber stop onto our fishing line. But we're going to need this. Now they make these in various varieties. You have just a regular kind of a string that you can tie onto your line, and there's these little wire springs. But I found that I like the rubber stops a lot better, basically, because it doesn't get hung up in your eyes of your fishing pole as much, and it flows through a little bit more seamlessly. And so we're going to be needing that. And of course, these are your corks. Get a good balsa cork. This is one that's been used a lot, and of course this is a new one. But like I said, I like to try to find them with the small, the tip of them, where I don't have to have the bead, and it'll go straight to the bobber stop. And so a nice cork. This is our split shots. I hope you can see them there. We're just going to use a couple, or just one, but this is what they are, and this is the size. They're 735-5. I just like this weight. Now, like I said, you do not have to use a split shot. You could just use the weight of the jig head. That's total personal preference. Now, I kind of skipped the beads though, but if I do have to use a bead, I tend to use the smaller ones. Again, that's more personal preference, but you can get these at any tackle shop, Walmart, anywhere like that. But get you a pack of beads if your cork has a somewhat large opening at the top, because you're going to need a something to stop it when it hits the bobber stop. So that's where these beads come in handy. Now, of course, there's a large one in there, but you can do a variety of sizes. But that's just that these are the beads. Now, these are the clips I talk about quite a bit. There's where you put your jig, the eye of your jig head to, and then there's where you line your tag end of your fishing line through and tie on. And this is exactly what they are. They're the KVD fast edge clips. They're black, and then they're size 0. And pretty much this is what it is in a nutshell. There's the jig head. There is the clip, and what this allows it to do is, I'm going to show you, demonstrate here. Roll it on. So here's the clip. What you do is you just put the eye of the jig head and you just simply work it on, and you roll it onto it just like that, and then until it gets in there, and then you have it attached to the clip, and then the clip is attached to the line. And so this is also useful if you need to change your jig heads out throughout the day, if you wanted different colors or whatnot. And beyond that, that is it. But let's go ahead. Like I said, I'm going to do this from start to finish on the fishing line and show you putting all these in the step and the order that you need to do to make a slip bobber setup. Okay guys, now we're going to put all this together and we're going to start putting it on the rod itself. And so the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need the rubber bobber stops. And here they are. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel one off. So you've got the eye of the piece of wire and then you got the rubber stop. So now, here's my fishing line. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to thread that through that wire. Okay? And then I'm going to slide. Let me see if I can do it with this hand. Maybe. Nope, I'm not doing this hand. I'm going to slide the rubber bobber stop up to the line where it's tight. So, okay, the next step is you're just going to keep sliding it. You're going to slide it on off onto the fishing line itself. And so you can see it starting to slide into it. And so there's the fishing line, there's the piece of wire, and then there's the bobber stop. It's not fully on there yet, but we're going to keep sliding it until it gets off. Okay, so now it's off. So it pulled off of this. So now we have our bobber stop on our fishing line. So now we can go ahead and slide this on up the line. Now if you have, this is monofilament, so I'm not worried about abrasions and things like that. But if you're using fluorocarbon or something, you might want to get your line wet before sliding the bobber stop up the line. So we slid the bobber stop up the line. The next thing, I'm going to slide it up a little bit more. The next thing we're going to need is we're going to need the cork. Now, like I said, in the demonstration, I'm going to use the cork with the smaller opening at the top. And that's basically going to allow me not to use these beads. So, I'm going to go ahead and just thread on the cork. I can get it in there. Alright, so the cork is threaded onto our line. Now it's up to the bobber stop. There's the bobber stop right there. Okay. So, now that that's done, we're almost there. We're pretty much done. The next thing I like to do is go ahead and tie on, I'm going to use this jig head. I'm going to use it on one of these new clips. So, I'm going to go ahead and clip on this jig head on this new clip. So we're going to roll it on there. Okay, so now it's on our clip. Now we're going to tie this to the tag end of the line. So let's go back to our tag end. Here's our tag end. Now we're going to run that through the eye of the clip. So there we go. It's on the line, floating there. We're going to give us enough to work with. That's probably good. I just did a simple holding over and just rolling it through about 6 times. And what I do is I like to run this through the eye. Hang on a second, let me. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I ran the tag end back through the eye. And then I'm just going to go back to the top, just like that. And then grab a hold of it, start tying it off. Come down, just cinch it down. Keep coming and cinch it. Alright, it is cinched down now. So, we've got it tied to the line. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to come in and trim off the excess. So, there we go. Now, like I said, at this point, you could use a split shot if you wanted to. I always like to use one. I've got to kind of open it up there. That one was closed. But just get it on there, and you can use your teeth or a pair of needle nose pliers or whatever you have. I'm just going to use my teeth there. And then there you go. You have a slip bobber setup. Now also, something I didn't talk about, on the cork, I just bought this one. This one's brand new. But I do like to trim quite a bit of the bottom off. And so I'll before I use this cork, I'll actually trim quite a bit of all the way to the bottom, kind of get it where there's only maybe 1/4 of an inch, something like that showing. And that's fine too, because I don't want that much resistance when it's sliding up down through the line. So keep that in mind. You can do that, or you can leave it the same like this. That's total kind of personal preference again. Alright, so now you guys should know how to set up a slip bobber. Alright guys, kind of changing pace here. Now, another thing that I've had questions on is how to know what depth to set your slip bobber at. And just so happens, there's my slip bobber at the very top of the rod. This is a small rod, but this rod is 5 foot long. So I know right out of the gate that I've got it's at 5 feet. That's how deep it is. But kind of going on from there, how I determine how deep to fish. So say I'm fishing in 25 feet of water, and then I'm fishing around brush. Now the brush comes up to maybe 15 feet of water. So that's basically, the brush is occupying 10 feet of the space of the 25 feet of water. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to fish approximately starting out on the top of the brush, because I want to get anything above that's that's feeding up, actively feeding, before working my way down through the brush. So I would probably start out, if I'm in 25 foot of water, my brush is coming up to 15 foot of water, I'm probably going to start out in the 14 foot range. And so when doing the slip cork, I use my pole as a judging factor whenever I do the depth. So normally I use an 8 foot rod. And so I know if I double it over, so if I've got the line all the way to the bottom and I've got my slip bobber all the way to the reel, that's going to be pretty close to 16 feet. And of course that'd be too deep, so I would just back it down a couple feet to make it 14. And so I just use my rod as a quick measuring stick to adjust my slip bobber. Now, sometimes when you do catch a fish, so you've got it in the water, you've got it set at 15 foot, so you're fishing and your bobber goes under, you set the hook and start reeling in. Now sometimes that bobber stop is going to get stuck on the eye of your rod, mainly the tip. It'll get stuck on the tip. Now sometimes it happens, there's nothing you can do to prevent it, and I wouldn't worry with it so much. I would just, once it gets, if that does happen and it slips, just revert back to that method, let your line out. And so if we want to be at 16 feet, 15 feet, use your pole as a measuring stick, just to know the length of your pole, and then just either double it over or just have it single. But that is a good method on determining your depth, because your rod actually works as a good measuring tool for you. But hopefully that helps when it comes to setting your depth on scenarios and situations. But like I said, all this is from start to finish, slip bobber setup from start to finish. If you guys have any questions, let me know. And of course, if you like the video, hit the like button, share it. But till next time, we'll see you guys.